The dangerous game. Most of us have heard of the most dangerous game, the story about hunting humans for sport. Nobody thought it could actually happen. But in the 1970s and early 80s, women started going missing around Anchorage, Alaska, most of them sex workers. Their bodies kept showing up in shallow graves in the wilderness, all shot, but nobody could figure out who was doing it. It went on for years. Then, in 1983, a 17-year-old named Cindy Paulson got away. A man grabbed her at gunpoint and took her to a local airfield, where his bush plane was waiting. While he was loading the plane, she ran. Still handcuffed and barefoot, she flagged down a passing truck. That's how police found Robert Hansen. He was a local baker, married with 2 kids, and everybody in town knew him as a serious hunter. He had been questioned before, but he was so calm and normal that nobody ever looked twice. This time, they searched his house and found weapons and jewelry from missing women. But behind the headboard of the bed he shared with his wife, they found something else. A pilot's map, marked with small X's. Each X was a body. Hansen confessed to 17 murders. He had been flying women into the wilderness, releasing them, and hunting them down with a rifle. He was sentenced to 461 years plus life in prison, but there were 24 X on that map. Only 17 were ever found. Under the mattress. For years, there's been a story going around about cheap motels and a smell that won't go away. A guest checks in, complains about the smell, and eventually someone finds a body under the mattress. Sounds like something someone made up, but it happened. In January 2010, Sony Millbrook was staying at the Budget Lodge in Memphis with her ex-boyfriend, Lakeith Moody. One day, she didn't pick her kids up from school. Her family reported her missing and told police she'd been staying at the motel, so officers came by 2 days later, but never went inside the room. Nobody was paying for it, so the hotel packed up her things, cleaned it, and rented it out again. In the next 7 weeks, 5 groups of guests slept in that room, and everyone complained about the smell. The staff kept spraying air freshener, but nothing worked, and someone even stuffed dryer sheets into the ceiling tiles to try and cover it up. One couple said the room was stanky and foul, and that the smell got worse whenever they sat on the bed. Nobody thought to check under the mattress for 49 days. When they finally did, she was inside the metal bed frame. She'd been there the whole time. Moody was found guilty of murder in 2014 and sentenced to life. And since the 1980s, the same thing has happened at hotels in New Jersey, California, Florida, Kansas, and Texas. It just kept happening. Buried alive. In the 1800s, you could buy a coffin with a bell attached to a string inside, and the idea was pretty simple. If you woke up underground, you could pull the string and ring for help. Sounds crazy, but people bought them because it had already happened before. In 1891, a woman named Octavia Hatcher from Pikeville, Kentucky, lost her newborn son. She fell into a deep depression, then slipped into a coma. Doctors couldn't find a pulse, so they said she was dead. And because it was a really hot spring, they buried her fast. A few days later, other people in town started falling into the same kind of deep sleep, but they woke up. It was probably some kind of sleeping sickness from insect bites, and it got people thinking that maybe Octavia wasn't actually dead when they put her in the ground. Her husband had the grave dug up. When they opened the coffin, the lining was ripped apart from the inside. Her fingernails were torn off and bloody. She woke up in the dark, 6 feet underground with no way out. Nobody knows how long she was alive down there. He never got over it. He had a life-size statue built over her grave and spent the next 50 years staring at it from his office window. He never remarried. And when he died, he was buried in a coffin he'd had specially made, one that could be opened from the inside. Trick or treat. Every Halloween, parents go through their kids' candy looking for open wrappers, weird marks, anything that looks like it's been messed with. Most of them couldn't tell you exactly why they do it. They just know you're supposed to. That fear goes back to 1974. On Halloween night in Pasadena, Texas, Ronald Clark O'Brien took his son Timothy and a few other kids trick-or-treating. At one house, nobody answered. The kids ran ahead, but O'Brien hung back. When he caught up, he had 5 giant pixie sticks that he said came from whoever finally opened the door. Before bed, 8-year-old Timothy picked the pixie sticks. It tasted bitter, so his dad gave him Kool-Aid to wash it down. Within an hour, Timothy was convulsing, and he died before they got to the hospital. The candy had been filled with cyanide and stapled shut. Police looked into the house where O'Brien said he got it, but the man who lived there had been at work all night with 200 coworkers who could prove it. So they looked at O'Brien. He was over $100,000 in debt. He had taken out life insurance on both his kids, and he called the insurance company the morning after his son died. The jury took 46 minutes. No stranger has ever killed a child with poisoned Halloween candy. The only person who ever did it was a father cashing in on his own son. The bathroom mirror. There's a legend most people know from childhood. Say the right name in front of a bathroom mirror, and something comes through. Bloody Mary, Candyman. The details change, but the idea is the same. Something is waiting on the other side. On April 22nd, 1987, a woman named Ruthie Mae McCoy called 911 from her apartment in a Chicago housing project. She was panicking, telling the dispatcher that someone was trying to break in through her bathroom. "They threw the cabinet down," she said. "They want to come through." The dispatcher put it down as a disturbance. Police showed up, knocked on her door, got no answer, and left. Neighbors called 911 too, reporting gunshots and screaming, but nobody broke the door down. 2 days later, a building worker drilled the lock open and found McCoy on the floor, shot 4 times. Her place had been torn apart. Nobody could figure out how the killers got in. The door was still locked from the inside. Then police looked at the bathroom. The building had been built with medicine cabinets set back to back in the walls, held in place by 6 nails, with a gap wide enough for a person to crawl through. The killers pushed out the cabinet from the empty unit next door and came right through the wall. McCoy had been telling the truth the whole time, but she had schizophrenia, so nobody believed her. 2 men were charged. Nobody was ever convicted. Already inside. The idea of someone secretly living in your home sounds too creepy to be real, but in 2008, a man in Japan noticed food going missing from his fridge. He set up cameras, and while he was at work, he watched a woman walking through his apartment, eating his food and making herself at home. Police found her curled up in his closet. She'd been there over a year. But nothing comes close to what happened at a farmhouse in southern Germany in 1922. In the weeks before that march, a farmer named Andreas Gruber started noticing things he couldn't explain. He found footprints in the snow leading from the forest to his farmhouse, but none leading back. A newspaper showed up that nobody had bought. Keys went missing. At night, they heard footsteps in the attic, but nobody was up there. The previous maid had already quit, telling people the house felt haunted. Gruber told his neighbors about all of it, then went home and did nothing. On March 31st, someone lured the family into the barn one by one and beat them to death with a farming tool. The new maid, who had only started that morning, was killed inside the house. So was the baby. Then the killer stayed. For 3 days, he ate their food, fed their animals, and kept the fire going. Then he walked away and was never seen or caught. Over 100 years later, the case is still open. Wearing the dead. For as long as people have been telling scary stories, there's been one about someone who wears the skin of the dead. It shows up in horror movies, in campfire tales, in nightmares. Nobody thinks it's real. In November 1957, police in Plainfield, Wisconsin, went looking for a missing store owner named Bernice Worden. A local handyman named Ed Gein had been the last person at her shop, so they drove out to his farm. They found Worden in the shed, hanging from her ankles. Inside the house was worse. They found chairs covered in skin, lampshades made from human faces, bowls carved out of skulls, and masks on the wall that used to be real faces. In the closet, they found a full suit sewn together from the skin of a woman's body. Gein had been robbing graves for years, digging up women from local cemeteries and using their remains to build furniture, clothing, and things nobody had a name for. He told police he wanted to crawl into his mother's skin and become her. She had died years earlier, and he never got over it. The whole town thought he was harmless. He did odd jobs, babysat the neighbors' kids, and kept to himself. Nobody suspected a thing. Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Silence of the Lambs were all based on him. 3 of the most famous horror movies ever made, and they all came from the same farmhouse in Wisconsin, North Pond Hermit. For almost 3 decades, people with cabins around North Pond in central Maine kept noticing the same thing. Food would go missing from their kitchens, propane tanks would disappear, and batteries, books, and clothes would vanish without any sign of a break-in. It always happened when nobody was home, and more often, right before Memorial Day and right after Labor Day, when the cabins sat empty. Over time, the thief became a local legend. People started calling him the North Pond Hermit, but nobody knew if it was one person, a group, or even real. Some thought it was a joke. Others thought it might be someone dangerous. In April 2013, a game warden set up a silent alarm at a summer camp for disabled kids that kept getting hit. It went off in the middle of the night, and he caught a man walking out with a bag of food. His name was Christopher Knight. He was 47 years old. He had walked into the woods in 1986 at age 20 and never came back. For 27 years, he lived alone in a hidden camp between 2 ponds, surviving Maine winters without ever lighting a fire. He broke into over 1,000 cabins and never carried a weapon or hurt anyone. In all that time, he spoke to one person. A hiker walked past him in the woods and they said hi to each other. That was it. He didn't know what the internet was. Cropsey. For decades, kids on Staten Island told stories about a man called Cropsey. He lived in the woods near an abandoned asylum and snatched children who wandered too close. In some versions, he had a hook for a hand. In others, he carried an axe. Parents used the story to keep their kids away from the old buildings. Nobody thought he was real. The asylum was real, though. Willowbrook State School had been one of the largest facilities for disabled children in the country, but it was shut down after years of neglect and abuse. After it closed, the buildings just sat there, rotting in the woods. Then kids actually started disappearing. In 1987, 12-year-old Jennifer Schweiger went missing. She had Down syndrome. Neighbors had seen her near the woods with a man nobody recognized. 5 weeks later, her body was found in a shallow grave on the Willowbrook grounds. Police tracked down Andre Rand, a drifter who had been camping on the property. He used to work there as an orderly when the place was still open, and he had a history of going after children. He was the last person seen with her. Rand was convicted and is still in prison, but the legend came first. Kids had been telling the Cropsey story for years before any of it was real, and when it finally came true, it happened on the exact same ground where they'd been telling it. The Lover's Lane. The story always starts the same way. A couple parks on a quiet road at the edge of town. They hear something outside the car. Sometimes it's a scratching sound, sometimes a news report about someone dangerous in the area. They drive off, and when they get home, they find a hook hanging from the door handle. It's one of the oldest urban legends in America. In the spring of 1946, it started happening for real. Over 10 weeks in Texarkana, on the border of Texas and Arkansas, someone started attacking couples parked on dark roads at night. He wore a white sack over his head with holes cut for the eyes. The first couple survived after he beat the man and attacked the woman. 3 weeks later, 2 more were found dead in their car. 3 weeks after that, 2 teenagers were shot in the woods. The town fell apart. People stopped going out after dark, businesses shut down early, and families slept with guns next to their beds. Police and Texas Rangers flooded the area, but nothing worked. His last victims were a husband and wife in their own farmhouse. He shot the man through the window while he sat reading the newspaper. 5 people dead and 3 survived. They called him the Phantom. He was never caught. Almost 80 years later, nobody knows who he was. The legend of Lover's Lane didn't come from nowhere. The Funhouse Body. There's always been a rumor that somewhere in a carnival funhouse, one of those hanging dummies is actually a real body. Nobody takes it seriously. In December 1976, a film crew was shooting an episode of The $6 Million Man inside a funhouse at the Pike Amusement Park in Long Beach, California. A crew member grabbed a hanging figure to move it out of the way, and the arm snapped off. Inside was human bone. It wasn't a prop. It was the body of Elmer McCurdy, a failed train robber who had been shot and killed in Oklahoma in 1911. Nobody came to claim him, so the undertaker embalmed the body with so much arsenic that it basically turned into a mummy. Then he stood it up in a corner and charged people a nickel to come look at it. From there, the body was sold to one traveling carnival, then another, then a wax museum, then a haunted house. Over the decades, McCurdy was painted with glow-in-the-dark paint, dressed up in costumes, and moved around so many times that people forgot he had ever been a real person. For 65 years, thousands of people walked past him, touched him, and posed next to him. Kids told their parents how real he looked. He looked real because he was. When McCurdy was finally buried in 1977, they poured 2 feet of concrete over his coffin. They wanted to make sure nobody could take him again. Charlie No Face. For years, drivers on Route 351 in western Pennsylvania told stories about something they saw at night, a figure walking along the road, using a stick to feel his way. When headlights hit him, his skin seemed to glow green, and where his face should have been, there was almost nothing. No eyes, no nose, just scars. They called him the Green Man, or Charlie No Face. Teenagers drove out late hoping to spot him. Over time, he turned into a local legend, the kind of thing parents used to keep their kids inside after dark. His name was Raymond Robinson. When he was 8 years old, he climbed a bridge near Beaver Falls and touched a power line carrying 22,000 volts. It took his eyes, his nose, and his right arm. Doctors didn't think he'd survive. He lived to be 74. Robinson spent his days at home making wallets and belts to earn a living. He only went outside at night because he didn't want to scare people during the day. That was it. That was the whole reason. The people who actually stopped and talked to him said he was one of the friendliest guys they'd ever met. He followed baseball, liked to talk, and would pose for a photo if you gave him a cigarette or a beer. He wasn't a monster. He was just a man who went for walks. The legend made him something he never was. If you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and feel free to drop suggestions for the next video in the comments.